push myself up here. All right. Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Currett Writer. And this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2003 period piece drama titled Girl with a Pearl Earring. And of course, Girl with a Pearl Earring was drawn by he wasn't a well-renowned artist. I mean, he wasn't like in the same ranks as Rembrandt or Jacob van Ruysdael. But, you know, he did do a few great portraits in his short life. I'm talking about Johannes Vermeer. The Girl with the Pearl Earring was painted by Johannes Vermeer, and this movie is a loose adaptation of the origins to this creative masterpiece. Do we know for sure who the mystery is behind the Girl with the Pearl Earring? We may never know, because this is a fictional account. I will get more onto this later. This period piece drama runs for 1 hour and 40 minutes long. It is directed by Peter Weber. It is produced by Andy Patterson and Anand Tucker. The script was written by Olivia Hetreed. It is based off of the novel by Tracy Chevalier, also called Girl with a Pearl Earring. The score was done by Alexandre Desplat, the cinematography by Eduardo Serra, and it was edited by Kate Evans. And the stars of the movie are Colin Firth, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Wilkinson, Judy Parfitt, Cillian Murphy, Essie Davis, Joanna Scanlon, and Alakina Mann. Though he's not exactly at the top rankings of esteemed directors, Peter Weber shows that he can through great lengths, like all the other high prolific ones, show that he can take an obscene story and turn it into genuine gold. This is a really good movie to watch. There's definitely a lot of positive things I would like to say about this movie. Yeah, maybe there might be a few red herrings here and there, but it's still a very good watch. Weber wasn't the only person on deck who made this story rich in detail, but his talented performers carried on in their respective roles and played it to heart. But also, we got to give hats off to cinematographer Eduardo Serra for making 17th century Dutch look and feel like what we would expect to see in the Netherlands during the Renaissance period. The visual backgrounds in The Girl with a Pearl Earring are really special, and the dramatic backdrop of the story is met with a very satisfying outcome. Just like the inspiration of the painting, Weber handles every color, scenery, camera placement with the greatest of care. Everything was just played to heart. This wasn't just, a cash-in or anything like that. No, this movie really shows the artistry, the craft, the dedication, and the skills that is needed to make a great movie. And this does not disappoint by any stretch of the imagination. The body language exhibited by the characters make up for the meager dialogue, and actress Scarlett Johansson seems to feel at home here, as she is known how to use her expressive ways to tell her story across. She did that similarly to a previous movie she was in with Bill Murray called Lost in Translation. She pretty much does the same thing here as she did in Lost in Translation, and it just seemed so organic that she could do that. Sometimes good acting doesn't necessarily come from dialogue, but body language, facial expressions, and even just some other essential communication skills that does not have to pertain to speech and mouth, hands, eyes, every essential body part is what communication is all about. And here we see the artistry of body language being played to perfection by Scarlett Johansson. The movie, like I said, is a fictional tale based upon the inspiration behind the famous Dutch artist Johannes Vermeer's The Girl with the Pearl Earring, which was done in 1665. Since historical period pieces claim to be based on true events, sometimes there's a lot of dramatic licensing, and sometimes directors may not be able to make the film authentic, because sometimes there might be a few historical inaccuracies. But this one here actually comes out and admits that this is a work of fiction. None of it is true. And what I like about it is that it is honest in that analogy and doesn't try to pretend it's based on true events like everything there really happened. No. This is just interpretation of what could have probably led to the inspiration of Johannes Vermeer's masterpiece, The Girl with the Pearl Earring. But I can assure you, this was all a work of fiction. And there's no apologies about it. Now, most of the film is not based too much on historical record, but from the novel of the same title by Tracy Chevalier, it's never intended to be that way to begin with. Fortunately, the dramatic tale is executed to near perfection and remains strong in its intellect and spirit. In some ways, it makes you feel like this movie was based on true events. And the results could be a possibility. Even though they clearly made it so that they tell its audience, no, this is not real. This is not what's happened. And that this mysterious painting of the girl with the pearl earring, who she is still a mystery 500 years and counting. The story is a fictional account, centers around the girl with the pearl earring herself. She goes by a name. Her name is Grit, played by Scarlett Johansson, who ends up becoming subservient to Johannes Vermeer, played by Oscar-winning actor Colin Firth. She was put to work not because of her own intentions, but because her parents were financially disadvantaged, and because her father can't provide and be the breadwinner like he used to. He had to let her go, and being a person of little experience, she ends up working for Johannes Vermeer. And even though she's a loyal, dedicated, somewhat shy, maybe somewhat naive servant to the Vermeers, she still remains with a positive attitude and a positive outlook on life, and just doesn't take anything for granted. Now, just because she's working for an esteemed artist like Johannes Vermeer, her life with the Vermeers is a pretty complex one. The artist himself is pretty much quite distanced and somewhat sour, and spends most of his time in isolation in his studio. Pretty much oftentimes just working on small little projects and some major big ones. But he's pretty much spends his life mostly in his studio. Maybe he would spend hours staring at a blank screen, hoping to get some inspiration, hoping to get some muse. and maybe simply just to get away from his dysfunctional family filled with spoiled brats and just the overbearingness of his wife and children. Maybe his studio is like his only spot where he can retreat from them. But he does remain at times very distant from his family and does not come across as being strong socially. He's kind of a little bit of a cliche there, the reclusive artist who just doesn't mingle with too many people, but will eventually have a soft spot on the person who he would least likely turn his attention to. His eternally pregnant wife, Catherine, played by Essie Davis, is easily disdained by Grit's inner and outer beauty. However, his mother-in-law, Maria, played by Judy Parfitt, has a tyrannical approach to the household. The children go through great pleasure to abuse her, and his fellow patron, Van Ruyven, played by Tom Wilkinson, likes her, but not likes her in a comforting way, if you know what I mean. His love is somewhat rather uncomforting, to say the least. So much to the point that he wants Grit to be the next subject of Vermeer's painting because of her beauty and because he sees something in her. So Van Ruyven kind of like tells Vermeer that she herself should be the next subject of his next great masterpiece. She agrees to pose for him, and the tensions run thick in both envy and seductiveness, even though their relationship kind of remains platonic. Of course, the envy and the disdain from the other members of the Vermeer family become quite obvious, and a lot of tension seems to just arise from within them because of Grit's beauty and somewhat fondness for his work of art. And he also seems to take kind of a liking towards her, even though it takes a while for him to break out of his dour ways. A lot of stories involving painters tend to miss out on the complex and difficult life they endure, which sadly makes them kind of one-dimensional and happy-go-lucky. Or some of them just spend the entire movie just down on their luck, so then they became self-contained and self-isolated from the rest of society. They're almost practically recluse, or they put themselves in voluntary house arrest, and they live, eat, breathe, sleep paintings. Which could be, inspiring to some, but to others it's not very healthy. Sometimes you do need to go out a little bit once in a while, and maybe you might find something inspirational or amusing that could lead to your next big project. But at least here in the Girl with the Pearl Earring, Vermeer's inspiration is deeply insightful, and his creative thoughts show how complex and strategic art can be. And it's not just randomizing thoughts coming out of nowhere. In fact, some of the best scenes is when Grit is working for Vermeer in the studio due to the natural chemistry between Firth and Johansson. They are quite the pair here. Yeah, I know kind of the age difference thing is kind of, but I don't think there was really working towards any kind of romantic stuff. You know, there could have been some slight romantic interludes between Johansson. At least they kind of kept it at the level where they were going to remain platonic. Grit struggles with keeping up with the Vermeer family, and the disdain they have for her may be at times upsetting, but it's never tedious. So I'll give credit for that. It doesn't become to the point where she's like completely physically abused, but she is being disdained, almost practically spat upon and disrespected. I also didn't like the final scene where he actually did come up with the painting of the girl with the pearl earrings. Of course, his family ends up uh, tearing him down, and she eventually gets kicked out of the Vermeer household. But in the end, Vermeer ends up giving her a present, a pair of pearl earrings, to show a token for his appreciation. So it does have a bit of a bittersweet ending, but still, you know, it can be a bit disturbing at times the way how they mistreated Greet. But at least I'll say one thing: she did keep her ground, and she didn't let it completely deter her or run her life. So for that, I give a lot of credit and kudos to her for standing up without really necessarily breaking down crying or basically going into one of these Hollywood cliches where she would break into an angered rage or scream to the tip of her lungs. No, this movie just manages to stay subtle. Even if at times, you know, Van Ruyven, Tom Wilkinson's character, is seductive and almost comes close to raping, it's not done with, you know, chases and screams and ripping off clothes, but she kind of pretty much knows just how much of a creep he really is. So, you know, I like the fact that they kept it subtle. They made you think that this was based on a true story, even though it is a fictional account. It does look, feel, and act like it was based on a real story, and I give credit for that too. Sure, Peter Weber was not a household name in the field of directing, but then again, Johannes Vermeer is not a big name when it comes to artisans in the 1600s. He's not like a Jacob van Ruysdael or Rembrandt van Rys. And you know, neither of these guys have to be big names. I mean, this movie and Johannes Vermeer's painting is goes to show you just how good a person can be in spite of the fact of not being a big name star. Peter Weber is not a big name star. Johannes Vermeer is not the most identifiable artist around. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being underrated, but there is something wrong about being underappreciated. And we appreciate the work that Vermeer did when it came to creating the girl with the pearl earring, and we also grow to appreciate the directing of Peter Weber. Aside from Johansson's expressive performance, the supporting players are equally effective in their respected roles. Colin Firth is a standout as the cranky Vermeer, but seems at ease when he's in his studio painting his latest creation. And like I said, his natural chemistry with some admiration and fondness for Greet was really, really well done, really well executed. Judy Parfitt is wonderful as the sharp-mouthed matriarch. Tom Wilkinson is a standout as the philandering patron. And Essie Davis plays the spoiled, envious Katharina to perfection. So with top-notch performances here, our expectations are very high here, and the girl with the pearl earring surely doesn't disappoint. Though it's deliberately not based on concrete facts, it's still one of the best, one of the more better period pieces out there. This truly exceeds any BBC costume drama. It's got a lot of levels of subtlety. Not too much in humor because it's more of a drama than it is. but it will inspire artists to go look more into further details, into finding out who is this mysterious girl with the pearl earring. You won't find it in this movie, but if you also are curious into looking more into Johannes Vermeer's work, as well as maybe even other well-renowned Dutch artists during the 17th century, hey, this is always something good to have a look at. So when all said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give Girl with a Pearl Earring a 9. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Rodrider saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.